Guys, HellaBass here today, and I want to talk to you about the new Googan Click Bait. Is it any good? And how does it compare against the Z-Man Custom and the Z-Man Jackhammer? Let's dig into it and find out what this new bait's really about. Ultimately, I want to really determine, is this new Googan bait any good? Or is the clickbait trash? And ultimately, is it ever going to find a place in my bladed jig box? So why am I even looking at the clickbait? To be honest, this is the first Googan bait I've ever owned, ever purchased. But in reality, I'm intrigued. This is probably one of the few, if only, maybe the first Googan bait that I've seen that I actually thought had some really good innovation or original design. A lot of the other ones seem to be directly inspired from a lot of the baits in the fishing industry, which is not uncommon. So I'm not banging them for that. A lot of companies do that all the time. But this one intrigued me because this design actually seems to be a little bit unique. First of all, I don't think this is a chatterbait, and nor do they claim it to be a chatterbait, but it is a bladed jig. So we'll compare it to some other standard bladed jigs in the industry by Z-Man, who really created this space from the start. So we're going to break down the designs of all three of these baits on price, hook, different components, keepers, skirts, and then finally we'll get into how do they start, what's the action like, and do they even catch fish. So just a quick note on packaging, I would definitely give the nod to the Jackhammer for packaging. I'm not a big fan of big bulky clamshells, so this is not a big thing. A lot of people store these in different boxes, but occasionally I will store these in different ways in my boat. So I might have a bait sack like this or a Ziploc bag full of baits, and these cards and small clamshells fit way better than a big bulky clamshell like this. Now the packaging is not a big deal, so let's get into the bait and what really matters. We're going to break down each bait, compare them all, and we're going to start at the connection point and work all the way through the components down to the hook, where the business happens. For starters, let's talk about the connection points for each one of these baits. Let's start with the Jackhammer, because this is the most widely talked about, probably most widely fished chatterbait in all the world right now. More tournaments are one of this. People are buying these. They're the #1 sellers at most big tackle shops, is the Jackhammer, even though they're super expensive. So let's start with that and work our way back. The Jackhammer sports a decoy egg snap clip, which is a pretty reliable clip. It's a solid clip. No complaints about that. It's a high quality component. Only thing about this, potentially in some scenarios with really big fish and braid, this wire is not the heaviest in the world, and there is potential that this could actually split out a little bit. So just something to be considering. The Googan Click Bait actually is wire formed out of the head, much like a spinnerbait almost. So you're tying directly to the wire of the bait. So that's probably the most solid connection you're going to get on this style bait. The Z-Man Custom supports a twisted wire mustad connection point, which is super strong. So if you ever fish in like super heavy braid, big fish, heavy cover, you might want to check out the Z-Man Custom, because this is one of the most reliable connection points you're going to see as well. Super strong. Don't have to worry about this clip opening up. So the blades on the Z-Man Custom and the Jackhammer are similar but slightly different. Almost identical shape, slightly different. And then the Z-Man has an ever so slight curve in the blade. So does the Custom. For the most part, they're really, really close to each other. Comparing that to the ClickBait, which has a much bigger blade, it's just as tall, if not taller, but much wider, different shape. It will be interesting to see how this comes through grass and deflects off cover, because we know, there's a lot of data points on this one out in the market and how this fishes, and it's a great grass bait. So interesting to see how this one comes through grass and wood and other cover. So another important part about bladed jigs in general is how the blade connects to the head. So on the ClickBait, you've got a wire form with beads. So I think the sound and action of this is going to be much different. I see this being a little bit more like a scrounger than a chatterbait as far as a bladed jig. I think we're going to have a different type of action. The sound is going to come from rubbing on this wire and these beads, which I think the click, right? So super clever name, super hats off to Googan Scott. It's probably one of the best name baits that's come out in quite some time. But you're not going to get the head-banging action that you do of an original chatterbait or something like that. The other thing is the wire form is a little bit bendable, so I think there are some things you can do to adjust this to maybe make it run deeper or higher or slower and tune the bait. The Z-Man Custom, which is actually similar to the original chatterbait, can contact the head when the blade swivels. So that is a positive. That's one of the things that a lot of people like about the bladed jig designs and why they like a bladed jig that connects directly to the loop, which is patented by Z-Man, versus the ones that require a split ring, which change the connection point. Now the jackhammer takes it one step further in the fact that they have a slotted eye. So this head is even much closer and has more contact and harder contact against the head, which is why you see when you fish this bait, a lot of times you're going to wear the paint off faster on the side of the head, and that's a good thing. You can see the gap there, the custom to the Z-Man Jackhammer. You're going to hit this bait a lot harder and more often than the custom, which is going to give it a completely different sound profile and vibration in the water. Sometimes maybe you want the hard hitting, sometimes maybe you want the more subtle. Every day is a little bit different. In a place where everybody's throwing one bait or the other, you might want to go the other way, much like a one knocker versus a regular lipless crankbait. Head design and finish, they all have a similar style head, but they're all slightly different. The ClickBait is a little more elongated in fish style with the Googan eye. To me, I don't think the eyes really matter on this style of bait. The custom has no eyes. I think that's just a little bit of frill you really don't need on a bladed jig. And then the jackhammer comes with a little more custom paint and an eye on their jackhammer. To me, that's not a big thing, but if it is for you, something to consider in the level of detail on these baits. Skirts-wise, they all have 100% silicone skirts. I would say the number of strands and the quality of the silicone is pretty comparable on most of these baits. Both the ClickBait and the jackhammer have hand-tied skirts, which is a nice feature. The Z-Man Custom, the one drawback here is this is just a banded skirt. Not that that's a bad thing, but you might find yourself that comes apart a little easier, might fall off, might slide down. You might have to repair that or fix that more often on that bait. On the flip side, it makes changing the colors of your bait much easier. You can slide this skirt on and slide a new one on very easily. All right, let's talk about the bait keepers on each one of these baits and how they're going to hold the trailer on your bait. Each one of these baits has the wire keeper. On the Z-Man Custom, it's on the bottom shank of the hook. This is a really reliable connection point, holds trailers really well. The jackhammer has a double barb system, which also holds baits really well. Some people like the single barb, some people like the double barb. It really depends on your more of a, what kind of plastic you use, whether it's Elastec, something soft, something more durable, harder plastic. Lastly, the ClickBait comes with a double barb system where they have the wire on one side and a molded keeper on the back. I expect that to be a pretty reliable connection. I think all of these baits will hold your soft plastic trailers very well. As far as hooks, they all sport a 4-aught design and a black nickel finish. I believe the Z-Man and the Googan Squad are using Mustad hooks, which are very high quality hooks. I like them for my jigs and a lot of their options. A really good option. The jackhammer sports a Gamakatsu 4-aught, which is an ultra sharp premium hook, which a lot of people love, and that's one of the premium components that drives the cost up in the jackhammer. The one big difference you'll notice is it appears the ClickBait has a custom hook with a little bit elongated shaft that just gets a little deeper down the bait, which one could potentially help you with short strikes or if fish are nipping at the bait, but it also could affect how your trailer performs getting into the tail section of your bait. So there could be some positives and there could be some negatives. Just up to you on how you fish and what kind of trailers you use. Oh, we broke down all those attributes. On top of that, they all come with a ton of great colors. It's pretty clear to me the Z-Man Custom is a great value chatterbait that catches a ton of fish, and I've caught a ton of fish on it. There'll be links in the description for all three of these baits if you want to check any of them out for yourself. The jackhammer is still the gold standard in bladed jigs as far as I'm concerned. Only time will tell once we get out in the water whether this Googan Squad ClickBait is a dud or a diamond. The next step is going to be the on-water tests. Unfortunately, Carl's Catch Co. took over a month to ship my baits when I ordered them, so there's no chance we're getting on the water for a little bit here. We're all iced up in Minnesota, and that's just going to have to wait. So once we get on the water, which one should I test first, the green pumpkin or the blue craw? Let me know down in the comments. But once we do get out there, we're going to really put these baits to the test, and we're going to check out their startup, how fast they start up, how much reel do you have to pop them to get that vibrating action that everybody desires, and how fast it happens. What is the overall action of these baits? What is their swimming action? How much do they pull? How hard do they thump? And then finally, we really want to test them around different types of cover and weeds and find out how these baits come through vegetation, through brush, other things like that. I've heard some downside that the ClickBait doesn't come through grass and it rides high in the water. We're definitely going to want to make our own opinion and form that for ourselves. And lastly, does this new Googan Squad ClickBait get bit? So is it trash? Is it good? I don't know. Once we get on the water, we'll be able to determine that for sure. Either way, there's going to be a lot more comparison and review videos coming soon. Let me know down in the comments which types of categories or which baits you'd like me to look at and make videos about in the future. Lastly, if you want to continue to catch more big bass and suck less, make sure you catch this video right here.